I use, coming from a mental health standpoint, that I have no problem with shutting down. I have no problem with saying, hey, I'm going to pause for a second. I need to realign, refocus, because the one thing that I know for sure is that these podcasts that I have are necessary. My tagline is the journey is necessary. So anything that I do, I believe that it is necessary in order for us to elevate and empower, encourage, and motivate each other. So if I'm having those moments, I'll take a step back. Hey, I'm gonna, set back for a week or two, realign and figure out what I'm doing. But I'm also gonna get analytical with it, because I'm gonna look and see. I'm not gonna allow that self-doubt to overtake me. I'm going to do the research. If this isn't working, what episodes played a part? A lot of times with podcasting, we just record, and I get it, but as someone that is trying to pivot in her podcasting journey, I do have to pay attention to those things, because this is something that I'm going to probably be doing for the rest of my life. So I want to make sure that I am strategically elevating myself and not just putting a mic in my face, because I want to make an impact, and whatever that looks like for me, whether it could be on international stages. Hey, manifestation, baby, I'm all for it. But just making sure that I am intentional in continuing to grow anything that I do, because I'm a full-time entrepreneur. There's no corporate job for me. There's no paycheck that I can fall back on. I have been a full-time entrepreneur for 4 years. So I have to think like an entrepreneur, whether it's through podcasting, whether it's through coaching, whether it's through hosting events. I have to always think like an entrepreneur. So if those moments come where I'm like, nobody's listening, then I have to really take a step back and figure out, what do I need to do to make sure that there are listeners and that I'm making that impact. Because again, with podcasting, that's what it's about for me. So I'm always going to analyze. I have an overactive brain, an overthinking brain. Whew, Lord, so much overthinking. But I have tools and strategies in place to help me with that, so I don't go off the deep end, and continue to keep myself focused, but also understanding that I can take time off, that everything does not always have to be perfectly aligned. I can say, I'm not with it today. I have canceled recordings because mentally I was not there. I am very unapologetic about that, and in my disclaimers, I will say that, please understand that I'm all about our mental health, making sure we are our most mentally healthy versions of ourselves. So, hey, if you don't need to, if you don't want to record today, I totally understand. Let's reschedule, because I will do the same thing. So, just being that person to understand that it's okay, because I'm still human.
I second everything you just said. Because I feel the same way. Like, sometimes I can get caught up in analytics, like no one's listening, but I also know like that's that self doubt popping in. I think it was like 2 weeks ago. I had zero listens, like, and like I didn't like I knew I didn't record. I was like, do I need to record every week? And I'm just like, yo, chill out, calm down. Like, you're almost at episode 50. Like, everybody, like, it's okay if you don't have a listener one week, right? And just being able to calm myself down, do my mental health things, which is one, sleep. I probably am tired, and definitely need to de-stress. I unlike Miss Keisha, I have a full-time job, right? And so this is podcasting is like a second thing for me. And so I know for me, like, sometimes that job be jobbing, and I'd be like, Jesus Christ,
Baby.
yeah, I love my checks. However, right, just gotta take a deep sigh sometimes. And I be
Woosah.
tired. I be woosah is right. I just be tired, and so I have to like literally collect myself to be able to be like, yo, if am I gonna record today? No, we skipping this week. Okay, cool, and I'm okay with that, right? That not having to be perfect. Like, at first, I was like, I have to record every week. I have to do this. I have to do this. Like, very, and now I'm just like, listen, it get there. It will get there. And also strategizing for me. Like, I have to strategize in order to be like, okay, this is. I also have a kid who's, I think he's asleep now. I don't know. But I also have a kid and having to strategize around my 3-year-old, so being able to do all that. I forgot the question, but I think heading home. Just basically like just not getting caught up in analytics and just being like someone is listening. Whether matter of fact, it was the other maybe 2 weeks ago. I did a 5K, and it was a couple of people I saw, Facebook friends, ain't seen them in a while. Like, hey girl, what's up? And everybody who I talked to was like, yo, your podcast is dope. I listen to it every week. Even though I don't see it per se, like they're like leaving reviews or whatever. It was an affirmation of like God telling me, I told you people are listening. You just have to keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to do what I do. You do what I do, and you do what you do. And we going to make magic together. And so just that, I had 5 people that day at a 5K said, your podcast is dope. I listen to it every day. It's really helped me. And so I'm just like, okay, people are listening. I just had 1 week of 0 listens, right? But at the end of the day, it's so many things happening in the background that you don't know, that you just have to just keep going, especially if this is like your passion or your calling or whatever it is. You just have to keep going and just know that in the end, people are listening. Whether it's just one person, you're reaching someone. And I think that's the whole purpose of podcasting. You don't have to have a million listeners like Joe Rogan and them. If you got 10 listeners, so guess what? You're changing lives in 10 people, right? And so I think that's the point of podcasting. Though as you're changing lives with one person, that's okay. Okay, I'm done talking.
Yeah. I like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. That's a long time. You got to split that up in a part one and a part two. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And Josh is making a good point again. Josh is on fire today.
He always on fire. That's my boy.
It's been my experience that it takes courage and strength to allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to attempt to be example for others and to show them a different perspective or an alternative view. And I truly understand all of that. Josh, I'm gonna need you to type some smaller books.
Yay,
I do
Lucky.
appreciate I do appreciate the interactiveness, but yeah, it was definitely for me with my podcast, I deal with a lot of traumatic experiences. Even though I'm not a therapist, I deal with SA, I deal with DA, trafficking, a lot of different things that are really deep seated and rooted and can really break your soul. And one of the things that I was on another podcast, I was actually on the Talk Shit with P podcast, Miss Paula. And
Hey,
shout out to Miss
Paula.
Paula for always sharing everything I got going on. So she's listening. Shout out to you, my girl. But she asked me this, and no one has ever asked me that before when I've been a guest on their podcast. She said, Noreen, your podcast, it you deal with a lot of really deep seated, rooted, traumatic things. How do you prepare yourself mentally to really sit and listen to all of these things that people are telling you? And my answer was, it just caught me off guard because I never really like prepared for it. Like in my little sis chat at the beginning of, my pre-interview, I asked them what they want to talk about. I never really think about how I'm going to react to it, right? And the one podcast episode that I really reacted to was the trafficking one, because the things that she was telling me in her podcast and all the things that happened to her and her experiences and her friends' experiences, the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. My hands got sweaty. Like I was so invested, like I was like glued to her mouth. And my mouth was open at one point. I had to close it. So I wasn't really prepared for that. Like, and then I thought to myself, should I be preparing for that type of stuff? Because yeah, a lot of people want to really talk about what has happened to them, as Oprah Winfrey would say in her book, what has happened to you. How do you guys really prepare yourself for the deep-seated conversations where, and I know, Melissa, you're a therapist, so you probably just trained for that, right? But sometimes even still when you hear it, you have to still take some steps back. So how do you really mentally prepare to hear tough conversations?
Well, from my perspective, again, I made, depending on the conversation, because I do have a pre-chat. I have conversations with people. We do like a quick chat, podcast inquiry, because for one, I want to make sure that your conversation is a fit for the show. I have had experiences and have been on podcasts that really weren't relevant to my mission and my purpose. Because one thing about it is I love doing this. And although it's monetizing and things like that, if it becomes a job for me, then it's something that I have to evaluate, right? So this is always a purpose for me. But I do have the policies in place. If I'm talking to someone that I know what the conversation is about, they want to share particular aspects of their story, then I get myself mentally prepared, whether it's through meditation. Hey, I'll tell the guest, hey, let's get on about 15, 20 minutes before, because I want to make sure that they're in a good headspace, because that's going to help me be in a good headspace. I don't want them to feel like that they're pressured. I ask them, hey, are you comfortable with these particular questions? If I ask these particular questions, are you okay with that? I prepare myself by preparing them, because that's going to allow me to understand how the flow of that conversation is going to go. But also, depending on what they're talking about, whether it's, being abused in any aspect, I'm going to get myself calm. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to pray. I'm going to make sure that things are going to go, a effectively, and that no triggers are going to be warranted while we're streaming. Because I don't stream live, I do pre-record, but I do it for those reasons. Because I've had an episode, and I'll share that, where someone real life went ballistic on the podcast, and had I been
Mm.
live in that moment, I just don't know how that would have been taken. So, although I love the authenticity and the raw and uncut of it, they were completely belligerent. They were completely, talking about a specific type of people, talking about a specific religion, a specific race, and it got really crazy. I just had
Mm.
to really disconnect that. So, that was a lesson for me to say, hey, pre-screenings are required, but also
Yes.
making sure that I talk with them beforehand to make sure that we are both in that space to be able to have a conversation effectively.
Um,
Yes.
this is a tough question because I don't know how I prepare. Like I said, like you said, I am a therapist, so I've heard and seen some things that probably no one probably should have ever heard or seen before, and worked with people through their trauma, particularly kids and even some adults, but a lot of crazy stuff I've heard from kids and their abuse. And so I'm just like, I kind of feel like a lot of times people can't throw a lot of things at me that's just like, oh my God, like every once in a while someone will catch me off guard. I'm like, oh wow. But it's more of a like a shock and not like a I'm not prepared because the therapist had kick on and the empathy and the unconditional positive regard and the I'm so sorry that happened to you. All of that kind of kicks in. And then afterwards, it's like whoo, that was a lot. Okay, let's go ahead and pray. I always pray for the people who I work with. Pray and de-stress. Take a break, go to sleep. Eat some food, drink some water. Exercise. All the things that they help me. And so, yeah, I think on my untoxify your relationship, I haven't really had any heavy conversations except when I had Leah on my show. Shout out to Leah Fornage who's listening. I had her on my show and we talked about not self, sexual assault, and she shared her story. And even with that, it wasn't heavy because we kind of went into this whole, biblical Christian and how we just kind of like went around and say, yes, this happened, but at the end, we have this blessing from her story, right? A blessing that kind of happened with her. And so it wasn't as heavy. So, to anybody who's doing heavy episodes, definitely take care of yourself um, and make sure that you create a safe space for people to be able to share their story, and also a safe space for yourself because you are dealing with some heavy stuff. So, I am a trained professional, so it's a little different for me.
Yeah, and I actually listened to that episode with you and Leah. I didn't know what I was in for. I mean, having dealt with the both of you on the documentary and seeing how you guys interact, I was like, oh, I have to listen to this. It was amazing. It really was, because not only were you sharing something that was tough, it's the way you guys were just giggling, and the rapport between the two of you, it made it softened the blow. Let's just say that. And I think that's kind of important too, how you really take a tough conversation and really soften that out. What do you think, Clive? Yeah. Really deep into our dialect. Hmm. It means unique to me.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You not being authentic. Come on, Clyde.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Hmm. Yep. No. Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. When I shared in the beginning that I was so nervous about going live, and I'm still in corporate America. I- The funny thing is, I have done so many presentations at work. Maybe it's because it was work that I was comfortable. I was like, yep, this is who it is. This is just the job. Maybe it might have been because it was personal is why I had a problem going live. Now, Melissa, you're the therapist. Tell me if that's really a thing.
No, I think it is because I can actually attest to what Clive is saying. Like I started last year in September and I was just like nervous and I wasn't even live. I was pre-recording. Like, I gotta say this word right. I gotta make sure I got this right. You know, what's the Greek, what's the Hebrew? Like all this stuff that just don't matter, right? And just getting the information out was the main thing I wanted to do. And so I can actually say, like Noreen, like you say, you're in corporate America. I'm in nonprofit America, which I don't know which one is worse. But we're listen, they both got their things. Anyway, so even in nonprofit America, I see myself, I'm doing more presentations and I'm like, the confidence is through the roof. I'm like, yeah, and then we doing this. I'm over here making jokes and everything. I'm like, but I would have never been able to do that if I hadn't started podcasting a year ago. I know that podcasting has helped me to have that self-confidence and that drive and all that. Now I want to do presentations. I'm like, who want to do presentation? Me. Who want to do this? Me. Like now it's like I want to do these things. I think it's all because I've learned how to do these things through podcasting and it's perfected my craft. I know I am more clear in my speech. I don't use and like and right, all those like filler words as much as I used to. I'm more cognizant of my speech. I'm more cognizant of a lot of different things. So you know what? I don't know if this. I know you asked me if that's a therapist. Asked me if that's like a mental health thing. I'm not sure. I just know when you do something over and over and over and over again, you get better at it. And as you keep getting better, you want to do the things that you didn't want to do before because now you have the skills and ability to do it better than what you were doing it maybe a year or two ago. So maybe Noreen, maybe this is you being able to do these things in corporate America because you have been podcasting and you understand what what public speaking looks like. Because all podcasting is public speaking just behind the mic.
Straight like that. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. And I think too, just
But the
being
thing is, I'm backwards
no,
I
but
am
why you feel you backwards though?
because I'm super confident doing the presentations at work. I guess because it's work related. But when it came down to me doing the live presentations, maybe it's because it was my personal stuff that I was talking about. Maybe that's why I was nervous about doing it.
That and work was work. You knew your check relied on doing them presentations. So it was kind of like a force. You know what
that
I'm saying?
part.
Like, let's just keep it real. Like it was a force
That
of
part.
like, I gotta be confident. I gotta do it. So why not be confident in doing it? Whereas on this side of things, when it comes to podcasting, it is not a force. It is something that you have purposed yourself to do. So obviously, because I love that Clive even said the word, and I wanted to mention this because he said the word twice, and I just love it. It made my heart warm. Is evolving, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
each one of us have evolved in some way, shape, or form when it comes to our podcasting journey. So you being able to evolve by coming from behind the microphone and going live. Yes, that was a moment of being uncomfortable, but that's just what life is about. We have to get uncomfortable in order to grow and pivot. So evolving into doing lives, evolving into discussing your personal, as you said, I pay attention to you. And even though I know you more on a personal note as well, you have a lot of things that you are bringing to the forefront when it comes to the personal life. But you had been trained growing up. Don't you talk about what go on outside of this. That's the mindset that you
Mm-hmm.
had for all these years. You are breaking that stigma, sis. So it's going to be uncomfortable as ever. It's going to be scary. I'm still on that journey. Although I'm very confident in what I speak about, what I talk about, who I coach, how I coach, and everything that I do, I'm never going to sit here and say, oh, I don't want to grow because I have shifted my mindset into growth mode. I'm always wanting to learn. Claude said it best, listening to other podcasts, listening to other people inspire, motivate. Hey, I'm all for that. That is all that's in my news feed. That's all that's on my YouTube
Mm-hmm.
channel. That's all that I listen to, whether it's, on whatever platform. So I shifted. 5 years ago, I was watching Ratchet TV all day, every day. So, just going to show the shifts that I've made in order to embrace myself overall and get uncomfortable to grow. So I just love the word. And I think that should be our word for the day is evolve.
Evolve. And I love what Leah said too. She said her first season of Hey Queen Thrive was full of mistakes, but it helped her become a better speaker and trainer. Now,
Facts.
here's the thing. Do you go back and revamp those? Because some people do. Once they, like, let's say you first starting out, you don't have the good microphone, you probably podcasting from your Anchor, the Anchor app with your phone. It's like some people said that they wanted to go back, now that they got the good equipment, they want to go back and change it. I felt like, no, I wouldn't go back and change any of my episodes because I want you to see the growth. I want you to hear me using all the ums and stuff, but then by season 5, you're like, oh, she got it together. Sis knows what she's talking about. She even know how to work this equipment. Maybe not pushing live when you're supposed to push live, but
Me
so what
personally,
do you
I
guys think
did.
about
Oh
what do you
yeah,
guys
I'll
think
say
about
this.
that?
I did actually go back, and some episodes I did delete. And the reason why I deleted them, one, they sounded horrible. Like, I'm talking about sound
Mm,
was terrible. And even though I didn't delete all, like I didn't even delete them, I just drafted them. So they're still available if I ever want to republish. Revamping them, no, I just drafted them and removed them. But I think some of them weren't relevant to, again, some of the episodes I was doing. I was talking about like things that were going on in my city that was not relevant to where I am now. And I think that
mhm,
I just kind of deleted some of those, but because of the growth that I've exuded, but I talk about it in the newer episodes, But me personally, I have drafted some episodes, just like I said, because the sound was horrible. And as a podcaster, when it comes to the analytics side, if it sounds terrible, nobody's gonna listen to it anyway. They don't want to listen to all that air
yeah.
and that all that background noise and everything. It's not, they're not going to listen. I don't care how good the title sounds, they're not going to listen. And because podcasting has evolved so much, we kind of know that now. Whereas during the pandemic, yep,
Mhm,
everybody was podcasting, so it was excused. But now there's so much technology that is able, you don't have to spend $100,000 on equipment to record a quality podcast. You can spend under $100 and have a great quality podcast. So for that reason, for me, there are some episodes that I have archived, but probably because of some of the topics were like completely irrelevant. It was just me talking just to be talking. So now the
mhm,
podcasts have purpose. So I did kind of archive some for that reason.
mhm. Yeah, and that makes sense.
I'm not gonna redo anything. I want you to see everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think in this world we're so used to seeing everybody on the mountaintop, but we're not used to seeing people in the valley. And I think the valley is where all the growth, all the everything happens. And we all use some mountaintop selfies. You're like, okay, we made it. Hey, look at me now. I got 1 million followers when we had one. That's I think more people need to highlight the the valley, versus
Mhm,
the mountaintop. And so I want people to know where I came from. I want people to see everything. I want you to see my imperfections. I want you to see how I stutter on my words. Sometimes now don't be feeling like